You're listening to Smart Moves with your hosts, Ann Riley Caldwell and Matt Wilson.
Welcome to Smart Moves, the podcast where we help you make confident, strategic choices about real estate and mortgages and moving to Tennessee. We make it as easy as possible. I'm Matt Wilson.
I'm Ann Riley Caldwell.
And today, that's all. That's all, folks. Today we're going to talk about ways that you can really blow up your mortgage. Obviously, for most people that are not independently wealthy or have a trust fund to rely on, you have to have a mortgage to buy a house because not many people have $500,000 laying around. So through that process, there's a few guaranteed ways to make your life absolutely miserable. We'll dive into that today. And if you choose to do that, well, then it's your fault now. So with that being said, we'll jump right in. And Riley, what have you seen as a big pitfall for people that are getting a mortgage?
Yeah, we're going to come up with 10 underwriting landmines here, and we're going to help you dodge them. So like he said, if you trip over one, it's either because you didn't watch the podcast at all, or you watched it and you did it anyway. So
yeah,
that's why you should watch the podcast, because then maybe you won't do it. So one of the number one biggest things is the old furniture spree. Buying things for the new house before you have the new house and running into the furniture store and opening up a new credit card. I think we've seen that a few times.
Totally. I've actually had somebody on the day of closing. Thank God it happened afterwards. But he went on the day of closing. He purchased a washer and dryer set on credit. And the next thing I knew, post-closing, we're getting audited by the USDA to confirm that he actually purchased it after the closing. If he had have purchased it before the closing, they would have called his loan, and the house that he just moved into would no longer be his, and we would all be very sad. So the best practice there is, if you need furniture, first off, try not to do it on credit. If it's the difference in an air mattress and a real bed, sure, but wait until a day or so after closing. Really, to that point, avoid credit at all between now and closing. My biggest advice to every client that I talk to is, on the first conversation, from now until you buy a house and you have the keys in your hands, you're going to sit on your hands and not do anything financially that you didn't tell me about. That's usually the best play for most situations to keep people out of trouble.
Yeah, basically, if you're thinking about buying it in that 30-ish day window, just don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the second thing that we see happen all the time is ghost money or mystery cash deposits. Here's the thing. Courtesy of the Patriot Act, courtesy of a lot of people that done a lot of bad things back in the day, cash is a no-go in a mortgage. If the cash is put in your bank account and you're using money from a bank account and we can't see that money's been deposited in the bank account because it's just existed there for quite some time, that's fine. But you can't go digging up your treasure chest underneath your current house to pull $100K out and throw it in the mortgage. You can't go grab money out of your mattress and put it towards your mortgage. You can't go to your gun safe and take that money and put it in your mortgage because it's unaccounted for. There's a couple of reasons that that's the case. The first one is we want to make sure that you didn't get any additional loans. If it's cash just getting randomly deposited, like how is it provable? How is it verifiable that you didn't have somebody loan you that money and you got to pay it back, and now we need to account for it in a mortgage transaction? The second thing is, back in the day, I don't know how this works in real life because I've never done it personally, just full disclaimer, but back in the day, the easiest way for people to launder money was through buying real estate. So by them making it impossible to buy a house with cash literally anymore, they've kind of made that a situation that doesn't exist. I know back in the day also, and Riley used to work in title offices and stuff. So did you ever see any interesting cash stuff pop up while you were doing that?
Well, I actually had a client. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was money that he needed to close. He literally had the money under his mattress. Like, I'm not lying. He literally had taken money from his paycheck every so often, and he might have done some side. I don't know where he got the money from exactly. It wasn't anything illegal as far as I know, and I'm pretty sure he was a stand-up guy. So, but he had cash and he didn't think anything about it. So of course, when you ask him questions, he tells you that he has this money. And then when you go look in his bank account, the money's not there. So then it's like, well, where's this money that you said that you had? And it's like, oh, I've got cash sitting here in my room in this box, and I was just going to take it to the bank and deposit it. So that was obviously a big no. So we will edit this out if this wasn't right. But what we told him to do was pay for his gas, pay for his rent, pay for everything with that cash, and then leave the money that he was actually getting from his paycheck in the bank account, so that by the time he got to closing, he would have enough money and he wouldn't have to say, he wouldn't have to deposit that money. So basically he just lived off the cash, which was totally legit. And then that way he didn't have to take out much money from his actual paycheck.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I tell people to do it all the time. Yeah, so we can leave that in there. That's my go-to advice if it's a reasonable amount of money. If you've got $3,000-$4,000 and that's roughly what your expenses to live each month are, then that's a perfect scenario where, here's the thing, underwriting's not going to pay attention to the fact that on your bank statement you quit going to Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell. They're going to pay attention to the fact that $3,000 just came out of nowhere and didn't say payroll deposit, and now all of a sudden we've got a problem. Now, from program to program, it's going to change what a large deposit is actually determined to be. So my blanket statement on that is just don't do it at all. If you find yourself in a position where you have to, then talk to, if your loan officer doesn't happen to be me, definitely talk to your loan officer about it. And if it is me and you do it without telling me, then we might have to go meet out back or something. But I've never fought a client in real life, just so you know. Just
asterisk.
Yeah, we'll put a little thing on the screen later. So yeah, now the second way that you can kind of avoid this problem is if you're buying a house in the next several months, but you've got money buried in the backyard next to your old cat or something, then go ahead, dig the money up, go take it to the bank and deposit it. As long as you can't see it pop up on the last couple of bank statements, it's a non-issue. The issue lies in can you see it pop up on those most recent bank statements?
And is that usually 2-3 bank statements?
Typically, it's going to be 2. It's very, 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 very rare to go 3. So my rule of thumb is 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So leading into that, so I had another scenario that's going to lead into one of these. I had somebody that was going to sell his cryptocurrency. I've had more cryptocurrency calls in the last couple of months. It's crazy. I think because I did a video on cryptocurrency. But he was going to sell his cryptocurrency, and Matt can tell you why you can't just do that 2 days before closing and put that money in your bank account. And so he had to we'll circle back around if Matt wants to about cryptocurrency, but he had to get gift funds from someone. So can you also give people the scenario of gift funds and what they need to do to make sure that it's traceable and the paperwork is correct? Because we also see people take money from a relative, throw it in their bank account, not tell Matt once again, and then all of a sudden money pops in that way.
Yeah. So we'll start with the gift funds thing, and then we'll talk about crypto for a second. On the gift funds front, that is a way that you can, mom, dad, grandma, brother, sister, whatever. I've had all of them help people out and give people money. But with the gift funds, the simplest, easiest way to have that done is to just have the money wired straight to the title company. If grandma's giving you $10,000, have her take it straight from her bank account, wire it straight to title. Because if you do that, all that you need is wire confirmation from title companies and then a gift letter signed between you and grandma. The issue lies with if you take and grandma gives you cash in an envelope and you deposit it in your bank account. Well, now we got an issue because it's the same unverified cash thing. Now we need a copy of grandma's bank statement to show that she pulled $10,000 out of the account the same day that you deposited $10,000 or within a reasonable time frame. Here's the problem with that for most people. If your grandma's anything like my grandma, they don't trust anybody, much less with their bank statements, and they want to know why the heck I need to see it. To be honest with you, I don't care how much they spent on their AARP membership or, money to whatever charity that they got on late night television or whatever. The thing is, we just have to see it because we have to verify it. But by simply wiring it to title, the verification takes care of itself. Now on the crypto front, it's actually getting a little bit easier to use crypto. Back three years ago, even 2 years ago, probably, crypto was really not recognized as actual funds in a lot of ways from a mortgage standpoint. In today's state, it's kind of treated similar to like a 401k account or any other investment account, in the sense that like they're not going to give you full credit for it at market value for, dollar for dollar, because you're going to have to pay taxes on it on its way out. You may get, it may change in value. I mean, sometimes it fluctuates pretty widely in value. So they usually will let us give you about 60% credit for it. But to use it for actual cash flows, it's actually got to be liquidated, and it does have to be managed in an account that's actually got statements to it. That's the other kicker. If you're doing it like on one of these ghosty accounts, like on the dark web or however the heck that works, like that's not going to work. But if you're doing it through like a Coinbase or Robinhood or something like that, okay, what's the difference in that? And you're just having a index fund or something. It's basically the same thing from that standpoint. Crypto is in talks to be directly allowed in a mortgage, just in and of itself, soon. There's been announcements from the White House and from the Treasury Department, et cetera, that say that that's the case. The only thing is there's not been any official guidance as of the recording of this video. So don't count on that yet until the actual agencies, Fannie, Freddie, FHA and stuff, change their guidelines. We have to work with what the guidelines currently say.
Okay. So I see some crypto updates coming, which will be great because I get calls about that quite a bit.
Yes.
So, okay. The next topic is the side hustles. When people are working DoorDash and other things on the side, they have a W-2 job, then they have side income, and they may also have a side income that they're writing off expenses on their taxes. And tell us what you see that could cause problems there.
Totally. Yeah. So the biggest ways that I've seen this typically is like with Schedule F or farm losses, because, you got 10 acres and you don't want to pay Uncle Sam that much. And then you go buy a tractor or something so that you can lose money on it, so that you got a tractor and you got less income. The problem on the mortgage front is when you got less income to Uncle Sam, you got less income for your mortgage. So the biggest instance that I've ever seen of that was I saw somebody running a side business that lost about $30,000 a year. And that was pretty ugly. They also kind of broke the rule of the ghost money thing, which opened up a whole nother can of worms we won't talk about on this podcast today. But that's the most dramatic time that I've ever seen, was about $30,000 in losses on a side business. The simple solution to that is, this doesn't apply to government loans. This is only conventional. You can basically take and just avoid using the tax returns. And through avoiding using the tax returns, you don't necessarily have to show those losses. Now, if there's anything out there that indicates there's losses in existence other than the tax returns, then we may be up a creek. So there's that. And so, yeah, just be thinking through that as you're planning your tax strategy, because unfortunately, when it comes to a mortgage and taxes, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You're going to run into some issues if you try to hide Schedule C losses a lot of the times, because that's going to hurt your debt to income ratio.
Yeah. So if you're not already figuring it out, having people walk you through all these things would be smart. Okay. What about when the people switch jobs in the middle of the transaction?
That's my favorite. It's my favorite of all time. I had a guy do that to me one time, who actually is also a real estate agent of all things, and it was not his first time doing a mortgage with me. I wanted to scream when I found out that had happened. Here's the thing. When you're getting a mortgage, we are going to verify your employment several times through the process, up to the day before closing, possibly. So if you get a wild hair to get mad at your boss and chew him out and walk out the front door, you probably need to pull a George Costanza and just show back up at work tomorrow and hope that they still got you on the payroll. Because if they don't, the odds of you getting to buy the house that you think you're going to buy is not very high. And you're probably going to have a very angry wife and children the next day whenever you've got your house sold and you're trying to move up to the next house and you quit your job. If for some reason something happens like that, let's say you get promoted. I've seen this happen. Or say you get just a better offer at a different company. First, try to see if you can hold it up until after the closing. I've actually had situations in the past where people get promoted in the middle of the process, and we were using down payment assistance files or down payment assistance, which had income limits, and the promotion knocked them over the income limit in the middle of buying a house. Yeah, promotion's a great thing in most cases, but whenever you're in the middle of buying a house and it knocks you over the income limit and you can't get the mortgage you thought you could get, that can create some problems in the middle of a file. That may mean that you can't buy the house. That may mean you're calling grandma and begging for the gift because now you don't get down payment assistance, depending on your circumstances. So the other example I've seen of promotions hurting people is I've seen people whose pay structure technically got more favorable. They're going to make more money, but they've got less guaranteed money. So maybe they went from just a regular hourly employed guaranteed 40 hours a week to somebody that is in a sales role and gets a little less hourly, but they get a whole lot of incentives. Well, those incentives aren't going to count for up to 2 years. So now I've got to go off your smaller base pay because you took the new role, got promoted into a sales position, which again could really be detrimental to your debt to income ratio. So that's just a couple of ways. We could sit here for the rest of the day and talk about 75 other ways people could screw it up with the jobs. But that's the two biggest ones that I've seen happen several times in my career.
Okay. Well, the great thing about this is we are coming up with new podcast episode ideas as we go. So check back in because we'll go into some of these in more detail because there's always more. How about student loans? This is also a whole podcast segment in and of itself, but deferrals on student loans, other things that you can kind of hit at a higher level.
Oh yeah. So I've had best most dramatic example. I had a fellow one time that had about $200,000 in student loan debt. He had his loans in the COVID deferment, like we all did. The problem is whenever your loans are deferred, you have to count on my end, typically at least 0.5%, sometimes up to 1% of whatever the total balance is in a payment against your debt to income ratio. This dude wasn't a doctor or a lawyer or anything. He was an engineering assistant. So I don't know what scenic path he took or whether he went to a private school to do that, but he had a lot of debt. And that was going to equate to about $1,000 to a $2,000 payment I had to nail him with on his debt to income ratio. So what we did is we had him put it in an income-driven repayment plan. That way it went based off of his actual income, and a percentage thereof is what they decided his mortgage payment or his student loan payment is going to be. Once that happens, we can actually count that payment, which happened to be about $60-$70 in his case. That obviously opened up a whole lot of more options for what he could purchase for a house because he was kind of hovering somewhere just north of zero when we had a $2,000 payment on him. The other thing, too, was student loans in the last several months. Like if you've got student loans, you're like, oh, they've been in deferment and stuff. My recommendation is set yourself an every 3-month reminder on your phone to go look at the things and make sure that they stayed in deferment if you thought they would. Because back last year, at the end of the year, towards the beginning of this year, we saw lots of people across the country. I personally dealt with several that had their student loans deferred because of COVID. That deferment ran out and they weren't paying attention to it. The next thing you know, we got a bunch of 90-day lates on all these student loans on their account. That obviously tanked their credit scores and really hurt their ability to purchase a house. Even some of them are bad enough they disqualify you altogether from an FHA loan until you get them paid back. So definitely keep tabs on things. Yes, student loans suck. Yes, you're probably lied to about them. We all were. College is the great American scam, in my opinion, these days. But the thing is, if you signed up for them, it's your responsibility. So make sure you're on top of that responsibility, and your credit will thank you for it later.
There you go. And then another big topic that we're going to hit on is child support and alimony. Some of the things that I've seen is there are people that have been to court. There's child support and alimony that's being paid, and it's being paid pretty much on time in a way that's trackable. I've seen it where it's paid by cash or in ways that isn't really trackable. And then I've also seen scenarios where people are getting it, but it's not a court order. They're just receiving it from their former spouse. And then maybe the fourth way would be, what would the fourth way be? I don't know. Why don't you hit those up? And then I had another scenario that I thought of, but I forgot.
Yeah.
So what's the right ways and the wrong ways for child support and alimony?
Yeah, so child support, I'll talk about both ends of child support and alimony. So obviously in those cases, there's somebody that's paying child support or alimony, but there's also somebody receiving child support or alimony. We'll start with the payer. If you're the payer, you want to make sure that you are tracing everything and that you're actually paying your child support or alimony. Trust me, I've got my own personal thoughts on both of those subjects, and not all of them are, friendly for the public consumption probably. But the thing is that if it's court ordered, you got to pay it or it's going to wind up on credit. I've seen situations where one parent's paying child support and they have the kid full-time custody for one reason or another, but they're still paying child support to their ex or baby mama or whatever. And it's still an obligation. Like until the court says it's not, it is. So keep that in mind on that end. And it counts just the same as a car payment or a credit card or a student loan or anything else on your debt to income ratio. It's just another debt that has to be paid. Now, if you're the person receiving child support or alimony, here's the thing. There's two pieces of the puzzle that have to be present in order for us to give you credit for it on your mortgage application. The first one is it's got to be court ordered. If they're just giving it out of the goodness of their heart, good for them, but there's nothing that says they're going to continue to give it. And the big rule of thumb in mortgages, we've got to show some degree of confidence that you're going to have at least 3 years of continuance on any kind of income for us to be able to count it. Which also leads me to, if your child is 17 and the child support's supposed to end at 18, you're not going to get to count that income on your debt to income either. The second piece of the puzzle beyond a court order is that it has to be received at least 6 months. Unfortunately, we all have probably heard a story or experienced a deadbeat parent of one form or another that doesn't want to pay child support. The guidelines reflect that. So we have to see that it's been received in one shape, form, or fashion for the last 6 months. Ideally, don't do it in cash. If at all possible, don't do it in cash. That doesn't benefit either party. The person paying the cash doesn't have solid proof that they paid it, and the person receiving the cash now doesn't have proof that they received it. So what are you doing with your life? Ideally, if you could do some sort of a check, a bank transfer of some sort, account to account type thing, or maybe depending on the state, you'll run it through the state's payment system. That'll at least give you a traceable way to prove that you've been making that payment over time.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things that we touch on, as you can probably pick up on, they have legal implications at times or implications outside just a real estate transaction. So always talk to your attorney or get one if you don't have one, because you do want to show, especially for the payor, that you're paying on time, and it can be tracked, because otherwise you might find yourself back in court not able to prove that you've been making those payments. So just a side note, a little asterisk there. So then the next topic, it kind of goes back to the buying the furniture at the last minute. But even if you don't buy anything, but you go, even if it's only $10, we're not talking like something that's just going to kill your debt to income ratio per se, because you put $5,000 worth of furniture on something right before closing, but you just walk in and somebody says, hey, can we just open up a credit card for you, and you buy something for $20 at Kohl's, just because you had that credit inquiry. Is that going to create a problem for some people?
Yes. The biggest credit killer that I see is walking into Old Navy and taking 25% off by getting a new credit card. You got two things that go on there. First off, they're probably going to give you like a $500 limit, and you're probably buying $500 of clothes if you've got more than yourself purchasing them. And that's going to mean that you're going to have a maxed out credit card from day one. That's going to tank your credit score. The second thing that's going to happen there is it shows up as a new inquiry, which is also going to hurt your credit score. If you're in the middle of the mortgage process and you let that happen, well, guess what? Now we've got to explain why we've got a Old Navy or a Sephora or we'll throw Dick's in there just so that the guys are covered too. Inquiry on your credit report. And if we can't document it, because let's say you just did it this weekend because you went to, back in the day, Bed Bath & Beyond, and you got their 25% off, and you got some new appliances or whatever for the small appliances for the house. Neat. How are we going to prove that you opened that account and how much you owe on it whenever you just got it last week and they haven't sent you your first statement? We're kind of stuck. So even if it's a small inquiry and you didn't go buy a new bins for the new garage, it can still cause problems. So again, kind of circling back to what I said at the beginning of the episode here, your best bet whenever you're in the mortgage process is to sit on your hands and sit on your credit cards and don't do anything but eat and sleep until you get to the end of the process.
There you go. So, I'm going to take a little bit of offense to the Dick's comment because I play pickleball, so I could actually need to open up a Dick's card, and I'm a girl, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
A hard time.
Bass Pro. If I said Bass Pro, you'd tell me you was fishing too. Whatever.
I'm just teasing. No, you could have said Bass Pro, and I wouldn't have had any comment to that one because no, I don't fish. People are getting to know us as we go, so it's important to know what our hobbies are and aren't, I think. Okay, so sometimes the problem is not the people. Sometimes the problem can be the building. So let's talk about condos that have HOA issues on the funding side of things and can't keep up maintenance, etc.
Yeah, so we'll catch the low-hanging fruit first. First off, if you need to be clear with your lender if you're shopping for a condo to make sure that we're counting a HOA fee in your debt to income ratio. You may be like, oh, this is an awesome maximum purchase price. And then you find out that it's got a $500 HOA because it's got a pickleball court out back and a pool and a cabana boy. And the next thing you know, you don't qualify for the same kind of house because that's going to be a net decrease in your total purchase power due to the fact that that's counted in your payment for your debt to income ratio. So that's like the upfront way that an HOA can kill your deal. Now, the thing that sucks is, in some situations, like if I was a single dude that lived alone and all that, I'd probably get a HOA or a condo or something like that because I don't want to mow my grass. I don't need a yard, so let them deal with all that, The problem is like I pay a guy to mow my grass now. That doesn't count my debt to income ratio. If it's an HOA fee, it does. So just keep that in mind as you're shopping. There's nothing wrong with condos. They're fine. Now, the second place that we go with condos, though, is like once you actually get into the process. Here's the thing. It's not just assumed that the home can get approved as a condo. There's a stack of documents you're probably going to have to pay about $500 to get a hold of that's going to determine whether or not the condo is able to be something that's financeable through conventional means or not. If it's not, you can still finance it. It's just going to be more expensive than if you did a conventional or FHA loan. Usually what the biggest things they're looking for is this. If you've got a condo and it's got more than about 50% of the homes inside the HOA occupied by tenants instead of people that own them, that's a no-go. If you've got more than so many percent owned by one entity, that's also a no-go. Because what they're looking for is condos that can sometimes get turned effectively into apartments. And when it comes down to it, you're probably going to, as an owner, take better care of the property than as a renter. It just is what it is. If you own something, you're a little bit happier to keep it up. And that's going to actually protect you, though, because it's going to hurt your property value over time. If you've got, Billy Bob out back shooting fireworks off of his balcony because he don't care because he's at the end of his lease, right? Or worse yet, Billy Bob out back in Nashville that's a short-term renter that's, the entertainer for a bachelorette party that's decided to shoot fireworks off the back of the porch of the condo while you're there. So the second thing that we're looking for there that can sometimes cause problems is just the financial solubility of the HOA. So, the thing about a condo in most cases is you're connected to your neighbor. If they're over there deep frying a chimichangas in their boxer shorts and accidentally take down their kitchen, they're taking you with it, buddy. So that means you're out of a house too. So the HOA is covered. Don't deep fry things in your boxer shorts. Like I've cooked bacon that way before. Not a good idea. It hurts. But
again, we give you advice on smart moves that have nothing to do with.
Yeah, that's going to be the part that gets clipped out of this and goes good. So
why don't you say it again so we make sure that we heard that clearly?
Don't cook bacon in your boxer shorts, and don't get a condo if the HOA doesn't have financial solubility. So when you're paying your HOA dues every month.
Okay, can you define solubility just so we...
Yeah, let me bring that back down to a better reading level. Sorry. Whenever you're paying your money each month, the HOA is supposed to be taking that money and putting it in a bank account. That way, when the roof gets damaged in a storm or just ages out or the landscaping needs changed or whatever, they've got that money soluble or ready to be used for those projects for you. The same way, if you owned your own house, you should be sticking money in an account for some sort of maintenance over time because inevitably something's going to break. And if you're planning for it, it's great. If you're not, it really sucks. So if they're not doing that, the condo documents are going to give it away. You probably don't want to buy that condo anyway in that circumstance because they're not, secure, so to speak. And then it also begs you to question, like, well, what happened to all the money? Like, why are they taking $300 a month for me to, trim my 2 shrubs out front and take my trash out, and they don't got money here because the roof wore out after 20 years. So that's the other way that it can happen. A lot of our company actually has a condo specific team where when I get a condo in, they just go through the process of getting all the documents and stuff for us. Like, I don't even have to fool with it anymore because it is a little bit convoluted and irritating, and they're built different, I guess, and they're okay with doing that themselves all day. So, I've had situations, though, where HOAs can be incredibly difficult to get a hold of because you got Pam that works there Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock to 8:15 in the morning, and that's your entire window of opportunity to tell her that your toilet's broken or to tell her that you need condo documents done. So if you do plan to purchase a condo, just know that there's a little bit of extra planning you're probably going to have to do, and a little bit of extra research you're going to need to do to make sure that it's something that's actually going to fly whenever you go to purchase it.
Well, and I would say, too, it's also important to know if it's a townhome or if it's a condo.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
there's so many times on the MLS people say that it's one and it's really the other, and it makes a difference.
Totally. If it's a townhome and it looks like a condo, you just hit the cheat code lottery, and there's still some documents that are needed, but it's a whole lot easier that way. The easiest way to tell 99.99% of the time if it's a condo or a townhome, check the tax card, see if the dirt is included in the tax bill. If it says property value X number of dollars, improvement value X number of dollars, I can almost guarantee it's a townhome. Not 100%, but almost every time it's a townhome. If it doesn't give any value to the land, just the improvements, almost every time that's a condo. Good rule of thumb to know, just in case you're shopping out there and curious about whether it's been mislabeled by the agent that's listed it or not.
There you go. Important things to know. And then our last topic, which could also be another topic. All these could be other topics. Maybe they will be. Solar panel liens. Okay, so let me just clarify. In Middle Tennessee, you don't see a ton of solar panels. And there's a reason. There's several reasons.
Tornadoes.
A friend of mine,
Tornadoes.
Tornadoes. That's one reason. From a practical standpoint, I actually am friends with someone who does sell solar panels in Las Vegas, Nevada. They are everywhere. They're everywhere for multiple reasons. But one of the reasons is because the electric bills in Las Vegas, if you only have just a decent sized house, can run $400, $500, $600. Some are over $1,000. So investing in solar panels, probably a good idea in Las Vegas and Phoenix and places like that because of the energy costs. So when you compare those things, also there's tons of sun. Sometimes there's even electrical companies out there that will buy the excess from you and sell it to other people. So definitely in some parts of the country, it's a lot less dangerous, although you still are going to have issues. But here in Tennessee, every time I drive by a house that has a solar panel, I'm just sad. It just breaks my little heart because there's almost nothing. And I actually talked to my friend in Las Vegas who said no one in Tennessee should ever have a solar panel, and he sells them. So he obviously does not sell them here. There's multiple reasons for this, but our electric bills here are really not that expensive. So I don't know what math they're mathing when they sit down at your kitchen table to try to tell you that a solar panel is going to save you money, because it's not going to happen. There's also issues when you go to change your roof, which also in Las Vegas and other places, they often have different types of roofs that almost never have to be changed. But we'll get into that but later in another episode. But from a financial standpoint, solar panels, in fact, Matt and I just closed a loan where solar panels had to be paid off on the house that the person was getting out of and taking that money and moving here. So Matt can tell you on the financial side why solar panels are a bad idea.
Yeah. So in that specific case, the issue is that there was a lien out there against the house. And actually, in that specific case, the company that had done the solar panels went out of business, so that made it even more exciting. But the problem is anytime you've got an extra lien against a house, like if it's your departing residence or a home you're trying to sell, you've got to always remember to account for that to be paid off as part of the big picture. I've seen it happen beyond just solar panels. Like Ann Riley said, there's not a ton of homes that have solar panels around here because common sense is like, this year I think it's rained just about every day. So how much use are you getting out of your solar panels in Middle Tennessee? Secondly, tornadoes are a thing here. Every part of the country has something trying to kill you, but tornadoes are what it is in Tennessee. And that doesn't lend itself very well to solar panels staying on your roof, should you have them. But basically what I've seen is like air conditioners even. Or if you get down payment assistance, there can be a second lien sitting there that you forgot all about. And you go to sell the house and you're counting on having that $10,000 as part of your cash to put towards the next house or to do whatever with. And you finally get smacked and realize that you don't actually have that $10,000. So that can cause some serious issues if we're in the middle of a process and there's a lien that nobody knew existed until title work comes in, and it create other title problems. I had a gentleman one time that didn't know that he had a lien on his property. He actually had done a pool, financed the pool, thought he had just done like a pool loan. I don't even think that's a thing. But when he did, they had put 2 liens against his property for that pool loan. They had split it into two different things. And, it made it where the HELOC I was trying to do for him, HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. It's like a credit card against your house in a way. It did not fly because we're absolutely not able to do a HELOC and be the 4th lien on a property. So that's where I think the biggest issue comes from is just the fact that people don't have it accounted for properly whenever they're making their math work for buying the next house.
Well, and I had a seller that wanted to obviously sell their house and buy a different house in Clarksville. And I felt so bad for them because the house at the time was probably about a $200,000, maybe $225,000 house. They had spent bought solar panels to put on this house, and I think they spent $35,000 or $40,000 on the solar panels. So Matt can do the math on what percentage that was of what the house was actually worth. So they call me and they're like, we would like to sell our house and buy a different house for reasons, life changes and stuff like that. And it broke my heart because there's no equity in their house. They've barely lived in their house like 2 or 3 years. So when you go to sell your house, you have to pay off those solar panels. And they had no money to pay them off. There was no equity in the house to pay them off. And that company had gone bankrupt, which is a big thing in the solar, which Matt had mentioned. So now they're trying to deal with a second company who doesn't know hardly anything. They've got a lien stuck on their house by a company that's now gone bankrupt, and there's no way to pay it off. So I told them that they just needed to keep asking questions and find the new solar panel company and get all the details. In the back of my mind and in my heart, that's also breaking again. I thought to myself, you're going to be living in that house for 30 years because you're never going to have the money to pay off those solar panels. So I'm not sure how this is going to work for you. So yeah, before you make big investments, putting in pools, putting on solar panels, doing things that are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, you really need to contemplate, if I have to sell this house in a year or two, how is this going to work out for me? So anyway, not to be a downer, but trying to help you.
Yeah, just think first.
Trying
just
to help you.
First.
Just think. Yeah. And if you don't know, I mean, even if you're not looking to buy or sell a house today, Matt and I are always happy to talk to you and help you walk through those scenarios so that when you are ready to buy and sell a house and want to actually use us, hopefully we've allowed you to make the best decisions so that in 6 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years, you're actually able to do that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much, that's the big 10 today. I'm sure that we can find some more, and we will, and we'll put those out in a future episode. But now that you've listened to this, it's your responsibility to know to don't do these things. This morning, my 3-year-old son, after being told 17,000 times not to grab his mother's curling iron, did it anyway. And he's got the nice little blister on his thumb to show for it. So let this be your warning to don't touch the financial curling iron. It's hot. Don't do these things.
Yep. Don't step on those 10 landmines.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm Ann Riley Caldwell here with Matt Wilson. We're your real estate and lending team over here. And as always, thank you for watching this episode. And we are here to help you make smart and strategic decisions about real estate, mortgages, and apparently life here in Tennessee. See you next time.